Good morning, students. Welcome to TSN classes. Now, today's our topic is cell structure and function. That is chapter number 8. Okay. Now, in this chapter, we'll study about the cell, about its structure and function. I think you all have heard about the word cell before. Huh? You have already learned that things around us are either living or non-living. Further, you may recall that all the living organisms carry out certain basic function. Can you list these functions? Different sets of organs perform the various functions you have listed. Now see students, you all know what are living organism and what are non-living organism. Non-living organism are like table, chair, okay? And the living organism includes plants, animals and microorganisms. You know that why the living organisms are able to perform their function? It is just because of the presence of cells. Now different sets of organ perform the various functions you have listed. In this chapter you shall learn about the basic structure unit of an organ, which is the cells. Cells may be composed of bricks. Bricks are assembled to make a building. Similarly, cells are assembled to make the body of every organism. See students, if you have to make any house or any building, what you have to do? You have to assemble bricks. You have to assemble bricks one upon another, and then you form a whole building. Similarly, in the same way, in our body also, cells are assembled to make a whole organisms. Now next come 8.1, discovery of a cell. Robert Hooke in 1665 observed slices of cork under a simple magnifying device. Cork is a part of a bark of a tree. He took thin slices of cork and observed them under a microscope. He noticed partition rooms or compartments in the cork slices. These boxes appeared like a honeycomb. He also noticed that one box was separated from the another by a wall or partition. Hooke coined the term cell for each box. What Hooke observed are cells or boxes in the cork were actually dead cells. Now see students, now the credit for the discovery of the cell goes to the Robert Hooke. Actually, he took a thin slices of cork. Now, what is cork? Cork is basically a part of a bark of a tree, and he observed these thin cork slices under the microscope, and what he sees or he notices small partitions or compartments, or you can say small room in the cork slices. Now this partition boxes or compartments look like a honeycomb like structure. Honeycomb like structure means जो मधुमक्खी का छत्ता होता है वैसा. Now Hooke coined the term cell for each boxes. Actually, he noticed the dead cells in the cork cells. Cells of living organisms could be observed only after the discovery of improved microscopes. Very little was known about the cell for the next 150 years after Robert Hooke observation. Today we know a lot about cell structure and its function because of improved microscope having high magnification. See students, now after the discovery of improved microscopes or the electron microscopes, now we are able to magnify or observe the basic structure of the cell or the living cells. The cells, both bricks in the buildings and the cells in the living organisms, are basic structural units. The buildings thought built of similar bricks having different designs, shapes and sizes. Similarly, in the living world, organisms differ from one another, but all are made up of cells. Cells in the living organism are complex living structures, unlike non-living bricks. See students, as you all know that in the buildings, bricks are the structural unit. In the same way, in the living organisms, cells are the basic structural units. Now you know that bricks are of different designs, shape or size. Similarly, in the living world, organisms differ from one cell to another because of the presence of cells. Now, cells in the living organisms are complex living structures, unlike non-living bricks. Now, come next. Now you can see in the figure 8.2, brick wall and an onion peel. Now you can see the brick wall and the onions peel. You can see a similarity between both, है ना? Now come to next 8.3. Organism shows variety in the cell number, shape and size. How do scientists observe and study the living cells? They use microscopes which magnify objects. Stains dyes are used to color part of the cells to study the detailed structure. There are millions of living organisms. They are of different shapes and size. Their organs also vary in shape, size and numbers of the cell. Let us study about some of them. Now see students, you can see or you can magnify any cell under microscope. Now basically to study the detailed structure of any cell, you have to use stains or dyes. Now basically these dyes or stains are used to color the parts of the cell so that you can study their detailed structures. Now the structure now the you know that cells are of different shapes and size. They can be of few micrometers to few centimeters. Then come numbers of cells. Can you guess the number of cells in a tall tree or in a huge animals like the elephant? The number runs into billions or trillions. Human body has trillions of cells which varies in shape and size. Different groups of cells perform a variety of functions. Now see students, if you compare if you compare the animals, like if you compare rat and elephant, there are number of cells found in these animals and their number runs into billions or trillions. Now human body has trillions of cells. Okay, a billion is 1,000 million, a trillion is 1,000 billion. Okay. Now organisms made up of more than one cells are called multicellular, many cellular cell organism. The number of cells being less in smaller organism does not in any way affect the functioning of the organism. You will be surprised to know that an organism with billions of cells begin life as a single cell, which is a fertilized egg. The fertilized egg multiplies and the number of cell increases as development proceeds. So you know students, what are multicellular organisms which are made up of more than one cells. Now see students, the number of cells, whether it is small, it is less or more, doesn't affect the functioning of any organism. Now every organism start its life as a single cell, and that single cell is a fertilized egg. Now this fertilized cells multiplies and then their number increases, and in this way development proceeds or progresses. Then come look at figure 8.3a and b. Now in figure 8.3, two examples are given. One is of amoeba and another one is of paramecium. Now both organisms are made up of single cells. The single cell organisms are called unicellular, one cellular cells organism. The single cell organism perform all the necessary function that multicellular organism perform. Now what are unicellular organism? Those organisms which are made up of single cells are called as unicellular organisms. Okay. Now a single cell organism perform all the necessary functions which is required for their life. Okay, as compared to multicellular organisms. A single cell organisms like amoeba capture and digest food, respire, excrete, grows and reproduce. Similar functions in multicellular organisms are carried out by groups of specialized cells forming different tissues in turn form organs. See, now the example of unicellular organisms are amoeba and paramecium. See students, in amoeba, a single cell perform all the function, whether it is of digestion, respiration, excretion, growth or reproduction. Now as compared to multicellular organisms have different cells, and these cells have their own specific functions. Now these cells in turn form a tissue, and tissue in turn form a organ. The teacher show a permanent slide of amoeba and paramecium under a microscope. Alternatively, the teacher can collect pond water and show these organisms by preparing a slides. Now see students, if you want to see amoeba and paramecium, you can you have to collect a pond water, and after collecting that water you have to make a slides of these animals, and you can observe these microorganisms under the microscope. Then comes shape of cells. Now refer to figure 8.3a. How do you define the shape of the amoeba in this figure? You may say that the shape appears irregular. In fact, amoeba has no definite shape unlike other organisms. It keeps on changing its shapes. Observe the projection of varying length protruding out of its body. These are called pseudopodia. Pseudo false, podia feet. As you learnt in class 8, that these projection appears and disappears as amoeba moves or feet. Now see students, now basically the cells are of different shapes. Here one of the example is given of amoeba. Now the shape of amoeba is irregular. Now its shape is keep on changing. Why its shape is keep on changing? Its shape changes because of the presence of pseudopodias. Now what are pseudopodias? These are the finger-like projections which protrudes out of the body, or you can say that these pseudopodias are false feet. Now these projection appears and disappears as amoeba moves or feeds. Now a change in the shape is due to formation of pseudopodia, which facilitates movement and help in capturing food. Now see students, with the help of pseudopodia, amoeba can capture its food and as well as it helps in movement also. A white blood cells WBC in human blood is another example of a single cell which can change its shape. But while WBC in a cell, amoeba is a full-fledged organism capable of independent existence. What shape would you expect in organism with millions of cells? Figure shows different cells such as blood, muscles, nerve of human beings. The different shapes are related to their different functions. Now see student, come to figure 8.4. Now A part shows red blood cells which are spherical in shape. Then come muscle cells which are spindle in shape. Then come nerve cells. You can see that nerve cells are very long and branched. Now generally cells are round, spherical or elongated. Some cells are long and pointed at both the end. They exhibit a spindle shape. Cells sometimes are quite long, some are branched like a nerve cells or neuron. The nerve cells receives and transfer messages, therefore help to control and coordinate the working of different parts of the body. Now see students, here example of nerve cell is given. Now see student, nerve cells are long and branched. Now what is the main functions of nerve cells? They receive and transfers the message. Therefore, they help in controlling and coordinating the various parts of the body. Can you guess which part of cells give it shapes? Component of the cells are enclosed in a membrane. This membrane provides shape to the cell of the plants and animal. Cell wall is an additional covering over the cell membrane in plant cells. It gives shape and rigidity to these cells. Bacterial cell also have a cell wall. Now see students, now you all know that the cell is enclosed in a membrane and that membrane is called as cell membrane. Now but in plants cells, apart from cell membrane, an outermost covering is also present, that is known as cell wall. Now this cell wall provides shape and rigidity to the cells. Now bacterial cell also has a cell wall. Thank you students.